Hi, Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's video we're going to be building a lightweight precision bolt gun on the Aero Precision Solus LT action. So been really excited to use this one, and I will say some of these parts actually came off of previous builds that we kind of scrapped or changed around over the time, so they will have a little bit of wear on them. For example, this MDT chassis I had on another build and I scratched it up a little bit because I actually shoot my guns. So if you were to purchase one, it would not come pre-scratched, don't worry. That's just for this one. Oh, also, you can get them in different colors and stuff too. I really like the green on this one. And you can get them with and without the integral ARCA rail. And I use ARCA on all my bipods and tripods, so that was a no-brainer. So like I said, this is the MDT HNT26 chassis. And this is also the side folding model. So you can fold this thing up in a gun case. You just got to be a little bit smarter than it is. And it'll be a pretty compact bolt gun as well. And then press to open. Alright. Now with that, we're going to be using, as I mentioned, so this Aero Precision Solus LT. What they did is they just cut out all the unnecessary area of it to make it just a lighter weight action than their standard Solus. So just to actually compare it, I have their standard action here. Disregard the trigger on it. I just don't feel like taking the trigger off of this one. I'm going to use it on another build. But as you can see, the first noticeable difference is that 1913 rail does not go all the way across on the lightweight. So they cut out a huge chunk of weight there. Also, they recontoured the sides of it. So shaved off some there too. But the bottoms are pretty much exactly the same. Now, with that, your bolts are also different. Notice this bolt is just a solid steel bolt. And then the LT, they fluted it to remove even more material and weight, still keeping that nice structure on it. So, there you have it. The bolt handles are also different, but they are interchangeable, so you could remove them if you wanted to. But we'll set that one aside and go from there. Also, I'll get into all the little different components here and there as we go through the build, but I had a dilemma on figuring out which trigger I wanted to put in this thing. So I have the TriggerTech Diamond and then the TriggerTech Special, and I was really torn between the two. So the only real difference between these two triggers is that the Diamond is a 4 ounce to 32 ounce, so super lightweight. And then the Special is a 1 pound to 3.5 pound. I'm probably not gonna, on this, for what I'm using this gun for, I'm not gonna go lighter than 1 pound. So I'm just gonna go ahead and roll with the Special, and then I'll use the Diamond on another build. But we'll go from there. So I'll set that one aside for now. If anyone wants it, just DM me, I'll send it to you. I'm just kidding, that's an expensive trigger. I'm not doing that. But let me see what else we got in here. TriggerTech triggers in general are just really awesome. They come with a wrench so you can adjust the pull weight, because they are, of course, adjustable. And then they come with a sweet patch. You can throw that on your patch wall or something, I don't know. But that's all you need out of there. All the other hardware is going to be with the action. So, with that, let's just kind of jump into the build. And before I do that, I'll address the elephant in the room because this box is huge. The optic we're putting on here is a Leupold Mark 4 HD. So, I've used a lot of Leupold scopes in the past, and like, I remember growing up, they were like that's what like you aspired to get. Because like, I grew up as a kid deer hunting in South Louisiana, right? And like, we were using like the cheaper like Bushnell scopes and stuff like that, which did great. But like the aspirational optic to put on your gun was like the Leupold. That's what everyone was after. But anyway, I digress. I just have like nostalgic memories of it, so that's why I'm bringing it up. But I'll go ahead and pull the optic out of the box here. Yeah, there we go. And this is, so I shoot a lot of Night Force scopes too. This thing is this thing's super lightweight, so that's perfect for this build. Notice, like, the scope itself looks massive, but it weighs almost nothing. So that's going to be perfect for a lightweight build. And that reticle in there, what reticle? I love that reticle. What reticle is this? I do mil radian on everything. But this is, let's see, the M5C3. Or no, I'm sorry. That's the optic. So this is the PR2 mil reticle. So I can tell right now I'm going to be a big fan of that. Is there anything else in here I need? I have some lens covers. I have a wrench to set my zero stops. I'll need that at the range. I don't need that now. The bikini style scope covers, I kind of hate those. So we're not going to put those on. But I'm glad they include something. And then you have your destruction manual. We might need that at the range too. Who knows? I will try not to lose this box. So we're going to hang on to that. I'll place it neatly over here for now. And we'll continue on. So the action itself, of course, comes with the action, your bolts assembly. And then it also comes with this little magical bag right here, because this is full of all the good stuff. I'll cut that open without cutting myself. Nailed it. And there's this bracket, 2 small pins, and a screw. This is what holds your trigger to the action. So we'll just actually start by installing that and go from there. So what I'll do, or what you're going to need to do, I should say, is get the correct size torque wrench. That looks like a T10. And that is a T10. All right. I'm going to get a little bit of blue Loctite as well. And I'm going to put some of this on the table. All right. Now I'm going to, if you look at the action itself and you look at this bracket, you'll notice that it kind of fits in there a certain way. So if you look at it, the screw area should be like a top shelf. And then the trigger just kind of sits down in there. And then the screw secures it. And if you don't have this seated right, it won't sit flush. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to need to do, and there's also this lip on the front. The lip has to cam in there. But I'll show you when we get the trigger on. There's no point in showing you now. Okay. We're just going to, this was going to go in there like that. So the trigger has to go in there like this. So we will do it just like so. So wrap the bracket around your trigger housing. Line up the holes and just insert your pins. So one pin goes in the front, the other pin goes in the back. And they're pretty snug fits. So I'm gonna, well, let me see if I can push them in by hand. If not, I'll use a nylon hammer to help me out here. Yeah, those are a little tight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take just a small hammer like this here, set the corner on my workbench, and tap it in flush just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to push my safety back so I can kind of set this flush against the workbench. Obviously, you could use a bench block too, like this one here, and just kind of set it on there and give it a tap, and it's on. Perfect. Now, if you notice, this one has this little floating piece on the side here. This is the bolt catch, or the bolts release for your factory 700 style. The Solus action has the bolt release on the side, so this isn't going to come into play. And then people ask me all the time, like, hey, I'm using a different action, how do I remove that? And I'm like, don't, just leave it there. It's not in the way, it's just there. So we're just going to leave it there because it's not doing any harm where it is. All right, now I'm going to get my screw ready. All right, I'm going to drop the housing into the action, camming that front piece in first, pushing forward, and rotating down. And it's in there. Now you want to look at it from the side and make sure that shelf is flush with the receiver. And when it is, a little bit of Loctite, and tighten this screw down. Now, Loctite's on there. Put this screw in there nice and tight. There we go. All right. So now our trigger is installed into the action. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install the barrel into this action. And to do that, we're just going to move right over to this area. I'm going to get some things out the way. I'm going to loosen my vise here and slide it down. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this excess Loctite. All right. Now, the barrel vise we're actually going to be using, this is a short action custom here. And I don't remember the exact model of this one, but I know it is the, they make a few different versions of it. And this one is the more Gucci one. So, with that being said, we have inserts for it. And these little insert bushing sleeves are for the diameter of your barrel. And then the action wrench we're going to be using is the Aero Precision Solus action wrench. Okay, so let me show you how to get all this stuff mounted up here. So I have my barrel. My threads are nice and clean. I did pull this barrel out of another gun and clean it up. It cleaned up pretty well. And it has a relatively low round count, so it should be still a great barrel. So this is a proof research for, this one's is pre-fit for the Zermatt Origin action, which is also the same as the Aero Precision Solus, so this will thread right on there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my barrel vise. I'm going to lay my barrel, not in it yet, I'm going to choose the correct size bushing, which for this is a 1.2 inch. And I'm just going to lay one side in the barrel vise, take the barrel, lay it in there, put the top piece on corresponding, close the barrel vise, and tighten this top screw. And let me grab a larger driver for that. That should be a 3/8 inch there. Alright, so 3/8 inch hex driver, and then I'm going to use this adjustable wrench to help me out here. I don't want this barrel to slip while I'm torquing that action on. Alright, let's set those aside. I'm going to take a little bit of Brownells Action Lube Plus, and I'm just going to put some on these threads. Not a lot, just a little bit will go a long way. And that'll spread around as I'm screwing it on. Alright. Now I'm going to take the action and thread it onto that barrel. I'm going to go all the way on, put it on as pretty much as tight as I can by hand. Just like that. Now, actually, let's see here. Now that I have that on, I'm going to turn this around just so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. You could potentially just go ahead and torque everything on from right here, but because this is a how-to video, I'm going to show you how to do it. So, same exact thing, I'm just going to turn it around. Tighten it back down. Alright, now, you are just going to take your action wrench push it in, rotate it until it locks in, okay? Then from here, you are going to use a torque wrench. So it's a Brownells torque wrench with a 7/8 driver. And the torque for the barrel to the Solus action, so Aero Precision recommends about 80 foot-pounds, 75 to 80 foot-pounds. And I'm going to go to the minimum. I'm going to go to the low end there. I'm going to do, that's 80. I'm going to do 75. And we are going to torque this down. There we go. So now our barrel is installed into our action. That's the hardest part, right? Now what we need to do is check the headspace. And we can do that. You can do it in the barrel vise. You can do it outside the barrel vise. It really doesn't matter. And a lot of people will tell you you need to remove the extractor and the ejector to check headspace. That's just, I don't know where that rumor got started. That's just not true. So what we'll do is take some headspace gauges. This is, of course, a 6.5 Creedmoor. I don't know if I told you the caliber of this gun yet. All right, so I have my 6.5 Creedmoor headspace gauges. And I'm just going to go ahead and take this out so you can see what's going on better again. Alright, that's all we're going to use our barrel vise for. So we can just set these things out of the way. I'm going to bring my vise back over. I'll just put it right there. And I'll just grab this. That should give you a decent view. Okay, so I'm going to take my bolt. I'm going to get it started. I'm going to start with my go gauge. So this is the go gauge. I'm just going to kind of position it. If you notice, so these are climber gauges. They're great gauges. And if you notice, let me find a pointing tool here. One side of them is cut out, and that's just so that it doesn't interface with the extractor. So whenever I push this gauge in, the extractor doesn't have to clip over a piece of steel. And that's the only reason they're cut like that. So I'm just going to kind of push this in, position it in the direction of that extractor, and drive them in together. And that extractor is probably still going to clip over it a little bit. All right, so your bolt should close all the way like it does right here. All right, and that's the go gauge, so that's good. That's what we want to see. And yeah, that extractor caught it a little bit. That's okay. We want to do the same exact thing with our no-go gauge, but this time we don't want the bolt to close all the way. All right, moment of truth. Boom. It starts to close a little bit, but doesn't even get close to shutting all the way. So that's perfect. We know this gun has proper headspace. And we'll take care of our gauges here, put them back in the tube. All right, now we have pretty much that's the hardest part, really. Now we just need to put it into the chassis. So the MDT HNT26 chassis. I'm just going to go ahead and that looks like a T15 driver bit. Using my Brownells Magnetip screwdrivers here. Is that a 15? Let's see. There we go. Okay. Yep, T15. So I'm just going to pull the screws out of here. And these are just the screws that hold that fore end on. We're just going to get them out the way. Now we're going to need a torque wrench. But first, we got to seat the action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and just set the barreled action into the chassis. And if you notice, there's a little bit of front and back play there. That's perfectly normal, but I'll show you what we need to do about that as we get this thing torqued down. So the chassis comes with 2 screws, a short one and a long one. The short one goes in the front, the long one goes in the back. And let's get this thing started here. And I'm just getting my driver set up to torque down these screws. Let's see what size we're going to use here. Actually, what we may just do I'll just use my Fix-It Sticks torque wrench for this. Or actually, I won't do that because I have this Vortex torque wrench. We'll pull the bits out. Then let's see if we have the right size in here. Should be a 3/16. Yes, 3/16. Okay. Alright, so we'll lock that bit in there, get that out the way. Now the action screws on this so whenever you're looking at torque settings, what you should torque your action screws to, look at the manufacturer of your chassis. They're going to be the one you want to follow. And for this, MDT says 60 to 65 inch-pounds. So I will set this up to, we'll just do 60 inch-pounds. That should be perfectly fine. As I mentioned, the front screw is the short one. I'm going to put that in a few turns. I'm going to leave it kind of loose. Then my rear screw, I'm going to need an extended driver for that, because it goes pretty deep down in there. And what did I say that was? .3/16. Okay. And I will get this down in there. Not tight yet. Then I'm going to come back to my front screw. I'm going to loosen it just a hair so that I can slide my chassis back and forth a little bit. Notice there's a lot less play, but there's still some play in there. What I want to do, and this is a perfect example here with that handguard off. This right here is the recoil lug of the action. So when I'm shooting the gun, this recoil lug is going to recoil against this lug in the chassis. So if you look right now, they're not touching each other. We need to make sure that they are pushed together like that, right? So that there is absolutely no movement whenever you're shooting your gun. So we'll push those lugs together, and then we'll also kind of put it on there straight too, so that left to right can't. Whenever you start torquing it down, that'll kind of fix itself, if you will, because the flat surface the screw's mating against as that screw like comes down, it'll kind of push it flat. So we just need to make sure that lug and chassis are pushed together. So we'll push those together. Then we will torque down the front first. Just like so, all right? And I'll try to stop from waving this thing around when I torque it. All right. And then once we have the front torqued, always torque the front first, then we'll torque the rear. Just like so. All right. Make sure everything looks straight. If not, just loosen it and retorque it. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we'll go ahead and take that handguard, slide it over the end of the muzzle, and lock it on to the back here. Now what we're going to do is just take our screws and put them right in. Now if you want, you can of course put a little bit of blue Loctite on these screws. So what I do is I'll just put one side in loose. I'll put the bottom in. And the chassis itself is aluminum, but the handguard portion is carbon fiber. Alright, so once they're all in there loose, I'll go ahead and snug them up. And I'll just make those nice and snug there. Okay, so now from here, we need to go ahead and put on our muzzle device. So with this, we could have done that while we had the barrel vise set up, but we can also just use a standard vise as well. And we're not going to put a ton of torque on it, so I will actually grab this aluminum chassis in the vise. I'm going to go ahead and pull my bolts out. And I'm going to grab it pretty high up on the chassis here with padded vise jaws. Being careful not to crush my selector here. Or not my selector, I've been messing with AR-15s too much. My safety. Alright, we just need to keep it from rotating so you don't have to go crazy with it. But we're using the Area 419 muzzle brake, and these things are absolutely awesome. I've used them so much in the past. But we'll just thread on the first piece here, and we'll just throw a wrench on it and snug that up. I know there's a bunch of like precision rifle guys out there yelling at me about the amount of torque I need to put on this thing. But I do not do very much torque on muzzle devices, especially on these types of rifles. And then the top piece is actually going to go over, and this knurled portion reverse threads on. So you're going to use a reverse thread, and you can actually time this muzzle device by hand here. So just look at it, make it vertical, and then once you have it vertical, you're just going to tighten the knurled portion. And that's actually tightening up against the bevel. So there's a ton of surface contact there. So it locks up nice and tight. You don't have to worry about that coming loose. Okay, now, nice and easy. And what we will do from here is go ahead and install our optic. So I'm going to come back to the vise. And I'm actually, let me think about how I'm going to do this here, because typically I would use my Arasaka leveling tool, but since this pick rail is split, I'm not going to be able to use that, which means I'm going to need to level this rifle. So I'm going to take a couple of bubble levels here. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in my vise. And I'm going to see how level I can actually get it. Just putting it in the vise here. And I'm actually I'm going to grab the muzzle end because it's round, and that'll allow me to rotate it freely. And I'm not going to grip it very tight. I'm just going to barely grab it here. Now, where do I want to put my bubble level? Well, that's pretty easy. I'm going to put it right on the rail, right? Because that's where the optic's mounting to, so that's the area we want to make sure is level. And I'm just going to rotate it. And I'm just going to try and get this level to as close to perfect as I can. That's pretty dang good right there. Also, another great thing about this action is that if you come behind it, that is also level right there too, which may come in handy. Now, the optic, I mentioned we were using the Leupold Mark IV HD. For rings, we're using these Area 419. These are their hunt rings. Yeah, so these are the hunt scope rings. And they're a super lightweight but very precise ring. So, assuming the rail on your action is machine true, which on higher end actions like this, they definitely should be, they bored out the inside of these rings to be perfect. So, what does that mean? That means we don't have to do any lapping to get them exactly aligned. So these things are machined perfect to each other. And that's a really nice feature to have. Now they also make a heavier version of those. And these are the match rings. So they're pretty much the same exact concept, except the match rings are a little bit thicker and they are noticeably heavier. So depending on what you're using them for, go with, either or. These should do just fine for this build. And once I get these rings apart, I will show you another really cool feature of them. So, yep, T15. We'll just loosen these up here. Alright, and we're just taking them apart. And each one of these rings only weighs 2.1 ounces. And if you're bad at math, I'll just go ahead and tell you for you, that is 4.2 ounces for the set. And a really cool thing about them, you can see right now as I take them apart, they have these steel posts that guide the top to the bottom. Because it doesn't matter how true this is if your rings are going on a little canted on top. So these keep everything perfectly aligned. Just really, really good quality machining here. And they are made out of aluminum. Alright, we'll get that one apart too. Okay, so now from here we can just mount these rings on the rifle. Let me kind of look at where I want my optic to go. Yes, I'll just kind of mount them in the middle of each one. That should be perfectly fine here, or the middle of the front anyway. Okay, so let me look up that torque setting. Okay, so they tell you right here, very clearly written on the instructions, the cap rings are 18 inch-pounds. So the cap of the rings are 18 inch-pounds. The base screws are going to be 45 inch-pounds. So I'm going to come back to my Vortex torque wrench. And these base screws, that might be a T20. Let's see here. Yep, that's a T20. All right, and these aren't on there tight, so we don't have to worry about any issues with the torque wrench here. They are on there loose, so we'll just back them off. Okay, now, I'll put it facing, it doesn't really matter. They're the same width either way, so I'll put it facing you so you can see what's going on here. And then I'm going to set this to the 45 inch-pounds, not the 60 that the action was on. Alright, so that's 40, 42, 44, 45. And I'm going to snug up one, back off a little bit so that it's still loose. Snug up the other, back off a little bit so that it's still loose. Now, what you want to do, because whenever your scope is mounted, your rifle's recoiling, right? Inertia wants your scope to stay still as your rifle recoils back. So you're going to want to take your scope rings and push it forward against that lug there so that there's no chance they could move under recoil or extended recoil or, you know, whatever. You want to make this thing as solid as possible. So we'll push forward and then torque down the screw closest to that front lug. Do the back screw, and there you have it. We're going to do that same exact thing on the next ring. Get it seated. Tighten it down. Back off. Tighten it down. Back off. Push forward. Torque. And torque. Okay, now we can take our optic and lay it in here. And that sits nice and perfect in there. But before we do this, what I want to do is I want to double check that level. And I did verify that this surface was the same as that. And it looks like we moved slightly, so we're going to move back. That looks pretty good. That looks great, actually. Okay. Now we're going to take our scope. And for me, my eye relief is probably going to be right about where this pin is. So that's where I'm going to set the rear of my optic. Alright, and now we need to level this optic. So that is too big of a gap to use my Aero tool, unfortunately. But if I have something I know that is perfectly true and square, I can use that to fill the gap and then use my Aero tool. So I may actually do that. That would negate me having to worry about leveling stuff. But I'll burn that bridge when I get there. For now, let's put these caps on. They have to go on perfect. You gotta have them perfectly aligned. Because those, I mean, that's a very snug fit. That is awesome. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all my screws in, but loose. And I'm going to go ahead and actually get my torque wrench set so I don't forget. Because that is a 18 inch-pounds. Right there. So I'm going to put one in that side, put one in the other side. They are in there loose. Alright, so I want to make sure I can still, one of those must be a little too tight. I want to make sure I can still rotate this optic. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, all right, so let me see what I have here that'll work with that Arasaka tool. And to my surprise, I decided to just check it out anyway. It looks like it might fit. Let's see. Almost. All right. So what I will do, so on these Starrett calipers, I know this to be pretty darn perfect to square here. That'll take up a little bit of the room there. I can slide this in and push forward. So this is basically just acting as a square, yeah, because all these angles are pushing against each other, squaring up this optic. So basically just squaring up the top to the bottom. And that looks great. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to torque down one of these rings. So I'll just start in the back. What I'm doing right now is tightening them down to get the gaps, what little gap there is in the tops of the ring, equal. And I'm just going to alternate screws like I'm torquing lug nuts on a tire. There we go. And I'm just curious to see if this top turret is level. Usually they're not, actually. And that's what most people level off of. No, it is not. But if I were to take this level, push it up against the bottom of the optic, and then drop it onto the optic, they are level together. So if you're using a bubble level to level your scope, always go off the bottom surface of the scope, because that is what's level to everything else. This top turret, there's springs and screws and stuff pushing up against it, so it could be off left or right very slightly, and that could throw everything off. So don't use that to level. All right. Now I'm just going to continue torquing my top ring here. Same exact process. No surprise. And there we have it. So the optic is now mounted. I'm just going to double check my eye relief here. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, great. Now, I'll just go ahead and throw my bolt in. So what we can do now is just kind of function check that trigger. I'm going to put it on fire, pull the trigger. Oh, that feels great too. That is a clean break. I'm going to feel that again. Yeah, that's probably set at about 2 pounds right now. And it's nice and crisp. Alright, and then what we want to do is put it on safe. And it should not go off, obviously. And then what I also like to do is bump it on the floor like this on safe, and then do it on fire. There we go. Okay, just making sure. That's just the final safety check I like to do. Now, for a bipod, or we'll do the magazine first since it's right in front of me. MDT metal magazine. They're a little heavier than like, they're not heavy, but they are heavier than something, say, like the Magpul magazines. So you could definitely use those as well. But these are awesome. And then for the bipod, this is actually a newer one for me anyway, so I'm pretty excited about it. This is the MDT CKYE-POD Gen 2 lightweight. It's a mouthful, but all you need to know is like price to weight to size ratio. This is the lightest bipod you can get and still be this stable. So as far as like stability goes, this is the lightest, most stable bipod, period. It's kind of like their CKYE bipods that they make that are a little bit heavier. They just trimmed it up and made it super lightweight. I mean, that's all there is to it. And some of the features of this thing I'll show you here. Obviously, Arca mount, so we're mounting it directly to this handguard. If I actually get it on there, there we go. And one thing, let's see here. I'll have to investigate a little further, because as y'all know, I'm a lefty. And whenever possible, I like to put my Arca adjustment on the opposite side, being a lefty. I think you can switch this one around. It looks like you can. Let's see if I could flip this over real quick and make it suitable for a left-handed shooter. Alright, so I loosened this swivel screw on the side here, and it's going to make it a little bit more forward set, but as you can see, you can just swivel the whole mount around. I'm going to mount it this way. I'm going to tighten this screw back, and I will show you exactly why momentarily. Okay. Now, when I mount this on the rifle, the adjustment screw is now on the right side versus being on the left side. And with that, all we're going to do here, and it's set up to be pretty wide right now. Obviously, you can adjust that, make it narrow. You can even go another slot over that. But the reason I like it right here is because if I'm shooting on a barricade or a bag or whatever I'm shooting on, I could easily just reach up and adjust my bipod and just lock in. So that's why I like to have that right there where it's easy to reach. Because the majority of the time I'm shooting this gun, I'm going to be doing it left-handed. Alright. And with that being said, that's all there is to it. So just a really good, solid, lightweight build. Aero Precision Solus action. MDT HNT26 chassis. Proof Research. 6.5 Creedmoor barrel. And Leupold Mark 4 HD. That's, Rifle Basics trigger, of course. The primary. Or no, the special. Okay. That's all there is to it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, parts that you think we should have done differently as far as the selection goes, let us know in the comments down below. If you have experience with any of these products, also let others know down in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button and the notification bell, all the stuff on YouTube. But with that being said, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, whether it be your precision bolt gun build, your AR-15, how to use bluing salts, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.